Elon Musk saves Taylor Swift from flood. The rain came down in sheets, relentless and unyielding, transforming the quiet streets of downtown into rivers of rushing water. Cars were abandoned, streetlights flickered, and an eerie silence filled the air, broken only by the sound of distant sirens and the rushing current. Taylor Swift clutched her phone, her hands trembling as she tried to call for help. The water was already knee-deep, rising fast inside the cafe she had sought shelter in. She had thought the storm would pass quickly, a brief shower before resuming her day. She couldn't have been more wrong. Her heart raced as the water climbed higher, soaking everything in its path. Panic surged through her veins. She glanced around the empty cafe, realizing she was completely alone. Her phone displayed no signal. A loud crash outside made her jump. Through the rain-blurred window, she saw debris being swept away in the current. The street was unrecognizable, a chaotic river where moments ago there had been sidewalks and parked cars. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath. But no amount of reassurance could mask the rising fear in her chest. Just as the water reached her waist, a sudden beam of light cut through the darkness. Taylor squinted, her heart leaping with a mix of hope and disbelief. A small boat maneuvered toward the cafe's entrance, the figure piloting it barely visible through the heavy rain. "Is anyone inside?" a familiar voice called out. Taylor froze, her eyes widening. Could it really be Elon? She called back, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Hold on. I'm coming to get you." The door burst open, water surging in as Elon Musk stepped inside, wearing a wetsuit and a determined expression. The sight of him was almost surreal, like something out of a movie. His face, though soaked, was calm and focused. "We've got to get you out of here," Elon said, moving quickly toward her. Taylor nodded, her breath catching as she waded through the water to meet him. "I didn't think anyone would come," she admitted, her voice shaking. Elon smiled slightly. "You didn't think I'd leave you here, did you?" Without hesitation, he wrapped an arm around her to steady her as they made their way back toward the boat. The current was stronger than it looked, tugging at their legs with every step. The boat rocked as they climbed aboard, the engine sputtering to life as Elon steered them back into the flooded streets. The water stretched endlessly before them, illuminated only by the flickering glow of distant streetlights. "Where are we going?" Taylor asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To higher ground," Elon replied, scanning the dark horizon. "I've been tracking the storm for hours. It's worse than anyone predicted. Half the city is already underwater." Taylor clutched the side of the boat, her heart pounding as they navigated the treacherous waters. Every now and then, the boat bumped into floating debris, signs, trash cans, even a half-submerged car. "I'm just glad you were nearby," Taylor said, trying to steady her breathing. Elon chuckled softly. "Let's just say I have a habit of being in the right place at the right time." The boat swayed dangerously as they navigated the rising floodwaters, the current pulling them toward the heart of the flooded district. The rain lashed against them in unrelenting sheets, soaking through their clothes despite the life vests they wore. Elon's hands were steady on the tiller, his eyes scanning the flooded streets for any sign of trouble or escape. The water reached halfway up street signs, with debris floating past them, tree branches, broken furniture, and overturned trash bins. Taylor's pulse quickened as the realization of how dire the situation truly was sank in. She gripped the side of the boat, her knuckles white. "Elon, what if the current takes us too far?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. He glanced at her, his usual calm unwavering. "It won't. I've got this. We just have to push through the worst of it." The boat rocked violently as they hit a sudden swell of water rushing between two buildings. Taylor stumbled, nearly losing her balance, but Elon was quick, grabbing her arm and pulling her back upright. "Stay close to me," he said firmly. She nodded, her breath hitching. "I should have stayed home. I thought it was just another storm. I never imagined." "No one could have predicted this," Elon reassured her, steering the boat toward a higher patch of ground. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." They passed by a row of abandoned cars, their roofs barely visible above the waterline. Occasionally, they caught glimpses of people waving from second-story windows, calling out for help. Elon raised a hand to signal that he saw them and spoke into his radio, directing rescue crews toward the buildings. "I've already dispatched more teams," Elon said as he turned back to Taylor. "We'll get everyone out of here." A loud crash echoed in the distance, and both of them turned toward the sound. A nearby power line had collapsed, sparks flying as it hit the water. The boat jerked suddenly, the engine stuttering for a brief moment before roaring back to life. Taylor clutched Elon's arm instinctively. "That was too close." Elon nodded grimly. "We need to move faster." The boat pushed forward, weaving through narrow passages between buildings. The rain began to ease slightly, but the sky remained dark and heavy, the air thick with tension. Elon guided the boat with precision, his eyes never leaving the path ahead. "Almost there," he said, gesturing toward a nearby rooftop where several rescue workers were waiting. "We'll get you up there, and they'll take you to safety." Taylor hesitated, a sudden pang of guilt washing over her. "What about you?" "I'll stay back and make sure no one else is left behind," Elon said without hesitation. "No," she said firmly. "If you're staying, so am I. We'll do this together." Elon raised an eyebrow, surprised but impressed by her determination. "You're braver than most people I know." "I just don't want to leave anyone behind," Taylor said softly. They spent the next hour working side by side, guiding stranded residents to safety. Elon radioed coordinates to rescue teams, while Taylor helped people climb into boats and handed out life vests. The water showed no signs of receding, but together, they created a small pocket of hope amid the chaos. At one point, a young boy no older than 6 clung to Taylor, his eyes wide with fear. "Is the water going to get us?" he asked, his voice trembling. Taylor knelt down, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "No, sweetheart. We're going to get you somewhere safe, I promise." The boy nodded, his grip on her tightening. Elon watched the interaction from a few feet away, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Despite the danger, Taylor's kindness never wavered. "You're a natural at this," he said when she joined him again. "I've never done anything like this before," Taylor admitted. "But seeing how calm you are, it makes me feel like I can handle it too." Hours passed, and slowly, the worst of the storm began to subside. The water, though still high, stopped rising, and the rain finally eased into a light drizzle. Exhausted but relieved, Elon and Taylor returned to the rooftop where the last group of evacuees had been taken. "Looks like we made it," Elon said, wiping water from his face. Taylor nodded, her heart still racing. "I can't believe we did." As they stood in silence for a moment, the magnitude of what they had just endured hit them. The city stretched out below them, battered and bruised but still standing. Elon turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I've been in some pretty intense situations before, but this one will stick with me for a while." Taylor smiled tiredly. "Same. But I couldn't have asked for a better person to ride out a storm with." "Agreed," Elon said with a grin. Teamwork at its finest. News of their efforts spread quickly. The next morning, headlines across the country read, "Elon Musk and Taylor Swift lead heroic flood rescue effort." Photos of the two of them helping evacuees flooded social media, with hashtags like #SwiftRescue and #ElonToTheRescue trending worldwide. Taylor's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, fans, and journalists wanting to know more. She glanced at Elon, who was scrolling through his own phone, smirking at a few of the headlines. "Looks like we've gone viral," she said with a laugh. Elon chuckled. Just another day in the life. But beneath the light-hearted banter, there was a shared understanding that what they had done was something truly special, an experience that would forever bind them in an unbreakable bond. By the following morning, the sun had finally broken through the thick storm clouds, casting a golden light on the battered city. Streets once submerged under torrents of water were now beginning to emerge, although debris still littered the sidewalks and intersections. Emergency crews worked tirelessly to restore order, but the true talk of the city was something entirely unexpected: Elon Musk and Taylor Swift's heroic rescue mission. As Taylor sipped on a hot cup of tea in the emergency shelter, her phone continued buzzing with notifications. Social media was on fire. Every major news outlet carried photos of her and Elon in action, drenched in rain and determination, helping stranded residents to safety. She glanced up at Elon, who sat at a nearby table, seemingly unfazed by the growing media storm around them. He was scrolling through his phone, occasionally smirking at the flood of comments and memes that had sprung up overnight. "Have you seen this one?" he asked, holding up his phone to show her a meme. The picture showed him pulling Taylor into the boat with a bold caption, "When Elon Musk is your Uber during the apocalypse." Taylor laughed, shaking her head. "I should have known the internet would turn this into a meme factory." Elon leaned back in his chair, a mischievous glint in his eye. "We make a pretty good team, though. Maybe we should start a rescue service, Swift Musk Lifesavers?" Taylor rolled her eyes playfully. "Let's not quit our day jobs just yet." As the day went on, Taylor and Elon were called in for interviews with several major news networks. The public was captivated by their story, not just because of who they were, but because their courage and quick thinking had genuinely saved lives. The press conference was packed with reporters and cameras flashing from every angle. Taylor stood next to Elon, feeling an odd mix of nerves and excitement. A reporter raised her hand. "Taylor, what went through your mind when you saw the water rising so quickly?" Taylor took a deep breath. "Honestly, I was terrified. But then Elon showed up, and everything changed. His calm and focus gave me the confidence I needed to stay strong. We knew we had to help as many people as we could." Another reporter turned to Elon. "Mr. Musk, you're known for building rockets and electric cars, not leading rescue missions. What made you decide to jump into action?" Elon smiled thoughtfully. "Sometimes, the world throws you into situations you don't expect. But when you see people in need, you don't think twice, you just act. Besides, I've always believed that technology and innovation are tools to help humanity." Yesterday was just a more hands-on version of that philosophy. The room buzzed with murmurs of admiration. The combination of their bravery and humility had struck a chord with everyone watching. After the press conference, Taylor and Elon were ushered into a waiting room, where they finally had a moment to breathe. Taylor leaned against the wall, exhaustion catching up with her. "Are you okay?" Elon asked, handing her a bottle of water. "Yeah," she said with a tired smile. "Just processing everything. Yesterday, I thought I wouldn't make it out of that cafe, and now we're here, talking to the press about a rescue mission we never planned." Elon nodded. "Life has a way of surprising you like that." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of the past 24 hours settling over them. "You know," Taylor said thoughtfully, "we should do something more with this. Not just tell our story, but actually help the people who lost their homes in the flood." Elon's eyes lit up. "I was thinking the same thing. What if we set up a relief fund? We could use it to rebuild homes and support the community as they recover." Taylor grinned. "I'm in. Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, the Swift Musk Flood Relief Initiative took shape. Donations poured in from fans, tech enthusiasts, and people around the world who had been moved by their story. Taylor hosted a benefit concert, with all proceeds going toward the relief effort, while Elon pledged millions from his companies to fund the rebuilding of critical infrastructure. The initiative quickly became a beacon of hope for the flood-affected community. Homes were rebuilt, schools were reopened, and businesses that had been washed away were given the resources to start over. One afternoon, as they visited a newly rebuilt community center, Taylor looked around at the smiling faces of children playing and families gathering together. "This," she said quietly, "is what it's all about." Elon nodded, his gaze steady. "It's amazing what people can do when they come together." The bond between Taylor and Elon grew stronger as they worked side by side. What had started as a chance encounter in a storm had blossomed into a deep friendship built on mutual respect and shared purpose. The media continued to follow their efforts closely, dubbing them the dream team of disaster recovery. Despite the occasional headlines speculating about a possible romance, they brushed it off with good humor. "You know, we could start a whole new career as disaster relief specialists," Taylor joked one evening. "Or," Elon countered, "we could create a new kind of tech that predicts and prevents these disasters in the first place." Taylor laughed. "Always thinking big, aren't you?" "It's the only way I know how," Elon said with a wink. As the city slowly returned to normal, Taylor and Elon found themselves at a crossroads. The relief initiative had accomplished more than they had ever imagined, but it was time for both of them to return to their respective lives. During their last meeting at the relief headquarters, they shared a quiet moment of reflection. "I'm going to miss this," Taylor admitted. "It's been one of the most challenging but rewarding experiences of my life." "Same here," Elon said. "But just because the storm has passed doesn't mean we stop making a difference. This is only the beginning." They exchanged a knowing look, an unspoken promise that their partnership, though unexpected, had created something lasting. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the streets that had once been submerged under torrents of water. The city's recovery was in full swing, with construction crews working tirelessly to rebuild homes and repair infrastructure. But despite the challenges ahead, a sense of hope permeated the air, fueled by the success of the Swift-Musk flood relief initiative. Taylor Swift and Elon Musk stood on a newly rebuilt bridge, overlooking the river that had once caused so much destruction. For a moment, they were quiet, taking in the scene before them: children playing in the nearby park, families walking along the riverbank, and volunteers planting new trees where debris had once piled high. "We've come a long way," Taylor said softly, breaking the silence. Elon nodded. "And it's only the beginning." He glanced at her with a smile. "You know, I don't usually take breaks from building rockets and electric cars, but this has been one of the most meaningful projects I've ever worked on." Taylor chuckled. "Same here. I never thought I'd end up co-founding a relief initiative with a tech mogul, but life has a funny way of surprising you." They shared a quiet laugh, but beneath the humor, there was a deep sense of gratitude for everything they had accomplished together. As the weeks went on, the relief initiative continued to grow. Taylor's benefit concert had been a massive success, raising millions for flood recovery efforts. Fans from around the world had tuned in to watch, moved by her heartfelt performance and dedication to the cause. Meanwhile, Elon's companies had developed new flood-resistant infrastructure technology, which was being implemented throughout the city. The media couldn't get enough of the duo's unlikely partnership. Headlines like "Taylor and Elon, from storm survivors to community heroes" dominated news cycles, and social media was flooded with videos and photos from their efforts. But it wasn't just about the publicity. For Taylor and Elon, every dollar raised, every home rebuilt, and every life restored was a victory far greater than any headline could capture. One afternoon, as they walked through a newly rebuilt neighborhood, they were greeted by dozens of residents who had come out to thank them personally. A young woman approached Taylor, tears in her eyes. "You saved my family," the woman said, clutching Taylor's hands. "When the flood hit, we thought we'd lost everything. But because of you and Elon, we have our home back. Thank you." Taylor's eyes filled with tears as she hugged the woman. "I'm just glad we could help." The day continued with similar encounters: grateful residents, smiling children, and volunteers eager to share their stories. Each interaction served as a reminder of why they had started this journey in the first place. As the sun began to set, Elon and Taylor found themselves sitting on the steps of a community center, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. "It's moments like these that make it all worth it," Taylor said, resting her head on her hand. Elon nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in big projects and global-scale problems, but sometimes, the most important work is right here, in our own communities." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of the past few weeks settling over them. "You know," Elon said eventually, "I was thinking we shouldn't stop here. There are other communities out there facing similar challenges. We could take what we've learned and expand the initiative." Taylor's eyes lit up. "You're right. This could be the start of something much bigger." And just like that, a new plan began to take shape, one that would take their relief efforts to a national and eventually global scale. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Taylor and Elon traveled across the country, meeting with local leaders, raising funds, and sharing their vision for a more resilient future. They spoke at conferences, partnered with environmental organizations, and even testified before Congress about the importance of disaster preparedness and infrastructure reform. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. The Swift-Musk Flood Relief Initiative quickly became a model for community-driven disaster recovery, inspiring countless other cities to launch similar programs. But despite their growing fame and influence, Taylor and Elon remained grounded in their mission. They continued to spend time on the ground, working alongside volunteers and connecting with the people they were helping. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and site visits, Taylor and Elon found themselves back at the rooftop cafe where it had all begun. The city below them was quiet, the streets once again bustling with life and activity. "Full circle," Taylor said with a smile, raising her glass of iced tea. Elon clinked his glass against hers. "To new beginnings." As they sat under the stars, reflecting on their journey, a sense of peace washed over them. They had faced the storm together, weathered every challenge, and come out stronger on the other side. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't shown up that day?" Taylor asked, her voice soft. Elon thought for a moment before answering. "I don't believe in coincidences. I think we were exactly where we were supposed to be." Taylor nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I like that idea." The next morning, as they prepared to leave the city and move on to the next chapter of their journey, Taylor and Elon stood side by side on the steps of City Hall, waving to the crowd that had gathered to see them off. "This isn't goodbye," Taylor said into the microphone, her voice clear and steady. "It's just the beginning of something much bigger. Thank you for letting us be part of your story." Elon stepped forward, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Together, we've shown that no challenge is too great when people come together. This city is proof of that. And I can't wait to see what we accomplish next." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the streets. As Taylor and Elon walked toward their car, Taylor glanced at him with a grin. "So, where to next?" Elon smiled. "Wherever we're needed most." And with that, they drove off into the sunrise, ready to take on whatever the future had in store. A few weeks later, life seemed to return to its usual rhythm, almost. Though the Swift Musk Flood Relief Initiative was now in full swing under a dedicated team, the impact Taylor and Elon had left on the city continued to ripple outward. Every morning, news outlets shared new stories of people rebuilding their lives, stronger than ever before. Taylor sat in her music studio, strumming her guitar and staring out the window. The familiar hum of the city outside calmed her nerves, but her thoughts kept drifting back to everything that had happened. It was impossible to forget the chaos of the flood, the adrenaline of those moments on the boat, and the partnership that had taken her by surprise. Her phone lit up with a message. "Elon, thinking of heading back to visit the city next week. Join me?" A smile spread across her face. Taylor typed back. "Taylor, only if you let me drive the boat this time." True to their word, a week later, Taylor and Elon returned to the city that had brought them together. This time, there were no floods, no storms, just a warm spring breeze and the sounds of life flourishing once again. As they walked down Main Street, they were greeted by familiar faces, shopkeepers, families, children who ran up to hug Taylor as if she were a long-lost friend. "Elon." "Taylor," called out a little boy as he ran toward them, holding a handmade thank you card. "You saved my house." Taylor crouched down to take the card, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you so much, buddy. I'm so glad we could help." Elon ruffled the boy's hair. "Looks like we made a pretty good team, huh?" Later that afternoon, they found themselves at the newly opened Swift Musk Community Center, a state-of-the-art facility that served as a hub for local families. The building buzzed with energy, children playing in the courtyard, adults attending workshops, and volunteers handing out meals to those in need. Taylor stood in the middle of the bustling scene, taking it all in. "It's everything we hoped it would be." Elon nodded, his eyes scanning the center. "It's more than that. It's a symbol of what's possible when people come together." A local reporter approached them, microphone in hand. "Taylor, Elon, can we get a few words about what this center means to you?" Taylor smiled. "This center is proof that even in the darkest moments, there's always hope. It's a place where people can rebuild, connect, and grow. And none of this would have been possible without the incredible community here." Elon added, "We like to think of it as a blueprint for the future. We've learned so much from this experience, and now it's time to share that knowledge with other communities facing similar challenges." As the day turned into evening, Taylor and Elon stood on the rooftop of the community center, watching the sun set over the city. "You know," Taylor said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I used to think of storms as something terrifying, something to avoid at all costs. But after everything we've been through, I see them differently now." "How so?" Elon asked, genuinely curious. "They're a reminder of how resilient people can be. How even after the worst storms, we can rebuild stronger than before." Elon smiled. "I like that." They stood quietly for a moment, lost in their thoughts. "Are you really thinking about expanding the initiative nationwide?" Taylor asked. "I am," Elon said. "There's so much we can do: early warning systems, disaster-resistant infrastructure, real-time response teams. The possibilities are endless." Taylor's eyes lit up. "Count me in. I'll help however I can." "I was hoping you'd say that," Elon replied with a grin. "After all, we're just getting started." The next morning, Taylor and Elon made one last stop before heading back. They visited a family whose house had been one of the first rebuilt by the initiative. The mother greeted them with open arms, tears streaming down her face. "You gave us our lives back," she said, her voice trembling with gratitude. "I'll never forget what you did for us." Taylor hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of the woman's words. "We're just glad you're safe," Taylor whispered. Elon glanced around the newly rebuilt home, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This is why we do what we do." As they drove out of the city, Taylor and Elon shared a comfortable silence. The road stretched out ahead of them, full of endless possibilities. Taylor glanced at Elon. "So, what's next?" Elon smirked. "I was thinking about building the world's first flood-proof city." "You in?" Taylor laughed. "Of course. Someone's got to write the anthem for it." Elon chuckled. "Deal." And with that, they drove off into the horizon, ready to take on whatever challenges the future had in store, together. Because sometimes, the most unexpected partnerships create the most extraordinary stories. And theirs was just beginning.